So, welcome back. We're going to move on now to a new topic. We've looked at neuropathies and we looked at concussion management, and we've seen a lot of nutrients that can support the nervous system using sort of multimodal approaches around the cell membrane, antioxidant, support the mitochondria, energy production, stabilize cell membranes, uh, signal transduction, all of these amazing things that nutrients can do. But certain things that we put into our bodies can actually do some harm to us. So we're going to look at heavy metal toxicity and how we can detoxify this. So there are, these herbalists and these sort of holistic nutrition people who have developed programs. You've seen these in health food stores and with other holistic practitioners where they have a liver cleanse program and a kidney cleanse and sort of a body cleansing your cells. And for the most part, I don't know what to make of it. But I have seen individuals, patients, who have had success using these products and some of these protocols. I mean, the liver one I understand, if you're using milk thistle and artichoke leaf extract and dandelion leaf and so on to flush things through the biliary tract and get toxins out and repair some of the liver cell damage. I understand that. I don't how kidneys are functioning better and how there's cleansing and you're getting more end products and metals into the urine and out of the body in a significant way. I'm not an expert in this, so I think maybe I need to find someone who's really good at it and have them do a continuing education program here on the Global Integrative Medicine platform and have it as a CE program for all of us to take, because I'm sure I could learn from them as well. But what I would like to touch base with here, and what I want to get across, is that really, to a large degree, we all need to be doing some ongoing detoxification just in a daily lifestyle program. And if in addition to that, if there are cleansing programs that really do work for liver, kidney, nervous system, cells in general, that's wonderful. But we should all be cognizant of our daily lifestyle and what sort of daily nutritional medicine can do to help reduce our toxicity states and have ongoing detoxification going on a daily basis from just everyday dietary and lifestyle behaviors. So I came across this fabulous review article by S.E. Sears, who's at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario Research Institute. And it's just brilliantly written. It was published in 2013, and it's about chelation, harnessing and enhancing heavy metal detoxification. So I'm going to give you the highlights. There are some other references at the end of this section that are also important, and we'll sort of see those along the way because I footnoted everything on the slides. But this was the main one that I used because it was a fantastic summary, and really you should read the paper in its entirety if you have a chance. But what we know is that in modern society we're constantly exposed to heavy metals such as cadmium, lead, and mercury. These are three big toxic metals that we're faced with on a regular basis. They have no essential biochemical role in the body, and as they accumulate they can do a great deal of harm if they build up to toxic levels. So these heavy metals, they bind to our tissues and they can create damaging free radicals. They can generate oxidative stress, and they can disrupt the endocrine system and interfere with the absorption and function of other important minerals such as magnesium and zinc. So then you end up with relative deficiency states of those nutrients. So as we go forward, we understand that cadmium is classified as a possible carcinogen and might actually cause cancer directly. We know that lead can damage the nervous system and be particularly harmful to developing brains of young children. So we've seen reports just not that long ago from this recording in the state of Michigan, where the lead pipe contamination damage was quite significant and underreported, and those children who were exposed to that drinking water during their early stages of life, that brain damage becomes permanent. You can't turn back the clock on that. And we know that mercury can also damage the brain and the nervous system. And there's an increasing number of people being affected by the bioaccumulation of mercury in food, especially in regard to fish and seafood, of course. And we'll come back and revisit that. So the Food and Drug Administration and the Environmental Protection Agency, they've developed guidelines about eating fish and seafood to help reduce the risk of serious mercury accumulation and nervous system damage in our bodies. Eating too much fish on a regular basis, as good as it is for the omega-3 fat content, we're seeing more and more cases of people showing up with mercury toxicity. And so there are no guidelines in place because there's just no way to know which fish are completely safe. But I will show you the high risk and the medium risk and the lower risk fish at the end of this section, what the guidelines look like. So the point is we're all ingesting a certain amount of mercury on an ongoing basis and being exposed to other heavy metals, cadmium and lead on some level. Even if you're doing your best to try to avoid these things, we're still getting exposure, all of us. So in addition to mercury bioaccumulation in fish, we're exposed to toxic metals from many sources, some of which include the activities and legacies of mining and toxic waste. So the mining industry, generates a fair bit of heavy metal toxicity. And then lead in paint and gasolines, and there's been certainly those things have been reduced in recent years, but in certain countries around the world, the concentrations would be higher. And then you have ongoing emissions from industrial and electricity generating plants and activities, particularly with coal mining, and I believe mercury is the big offender there. And then just chemicals in everyday products that we just take for granted that we're getting exposed to. And some novel technologies such as nanomaterials containing toxic elements like cadmium and lead that's ingested from old drinking water supply pipes, as I mentioned in the Michigan example. So the good news that is pointed out in this review article is that in addition to reducing our exposure and intake of these toxic metals, just being cognizant of where things are, there are some natural things we can do to help remove or detoxify and eliminate some of the heavy metals already in our body and block the absorption of some heavy metals in our intestinal tract. So certain foods that are high in sulfur, and this is the point, these high sulfur containing foods are spectacular because heavy metals will bind to sulfur, and sulfur then makes the heavy metal complex more soluble, so now the body can excrete it in the urine and also through the fecal route. So you can get it out of the body as sulfur attaches to it. So what are the really good sources of sulfur-containing foods? Well, they're garlic and onions. They have these disulfide compounds. And also the Brassicaceae family of vegetables, the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, bok choy, which of course have the sulfur-containing sulforaphanes as well as the indole-3-carbinol. And they also have other impressive anti-cancer properties, as you know, in addition to being good detoxifiers of toxic metals. So when we get into the cancer subject matter, we'll spend more time with these vegetables and their anti-cancer properties. But right now I want to focus in on their ability to help detoxify heavy metals that we're exposed to on a regular basis. So garlic has prevented cadmium-induced kidney damage. I mean, that's remarkable. You know that cadmium can damage the kidneys, but giving the individual garlic, or the animal garlic, in the experiment has decreased the kidney damage, or prevented it, and decreased free radical damage due to lead in rat experiments. So, just a food-based source like that can do a lot of great things. It doesn't always have to be a supplement. And also dietary fiber from whole grains and fruits has been able to reduce the levels of mercury in the brain and in the blood, which is, a spectacular thing. So when you're eating a more plant-based diet with grains and fruits, you're helping to block that mercury absorption. And the use of psyllium husk fiber as a source of fiber, now that's the active ingredient in Metamucil, but you can just get pure psyllium husk fiber, It's been shown to block the reabsorption of heavy metals back into the body once secreted into the gut via the liver and gallbladder following a meal. So, a lot of the heavy metals that are circulating get into the liver and into the bile. They get secreted into the intestinal tract, then they get reabsorbed back into the body via the enterohepatic circulation. But having psyllium husk fiber on a regular basis is able to bind to these heavy metals and decrease their absorption or their reabsorption back into the body. So that's very significant. So the ingestion of healthy minerals as well, such as calcium, selenium, and iron at optimal nutritional levels has been shown to block the absorption of heavy metals into the body. So the other way you can block the absorption of these heavy metals is by having more optimal intakes each day of these nutritionally essential minerals, calcium, selenium, and iron. That's why I like a high-potency multivitamin that, it's antioxidant enriched and has a B50 complex, but it should have, like 500 milligrams of elemental calcium, 100 to 200 micrograms of selenium, and, a little bit of iron. You don't want to have high levels of iron because you can create iron toxicity as well, but there are a lot of women in particular that walk around in an iron depleted state, as you know. And then selenium supplementation was shown to increase mercury excretion from the body and reduce mercury-induced free radical damage in a study of 103 mercury-exposed villagers. So here you have human studies showing where there's a high mercury contamination, that by giving selenium supplementation, you can block mercury absorption and mercury reabsorption through the enterohepatic route and help to excrete it from the body in a more effective way. And with calcium, it's been known to block the absorption of cadmium and has reduced lead mobilization from the bones of women during their pregnancy and the lactation period. So getting enough calcium during pregnancy and during the lactation period is probably vitally important to help stop cadmium circulating and doing damage. In children, nutritional iron has blunted lead accumulation. So even in children, making sure they're getting the levels of minerals at the right dosage for optimal health, helping to block some of the heavy metal damage that could be done at an early age. In addition, certain dietary supplements can also be helpful as heavy metal detoxifiers. So this is right from her research now. It's well documented that the mini protein known as glutathione, which we've spoken about glutathione many times, helps to remove heavy metals from the body tissues and excrete them from the body. So glutathione, this amazing antioxidant, conjugating agent, also can directly remove heavy metals from the body. So our bodies naturally make glutathione, from the 3 amino acids. We've talked about this many times: glutamic acid, cysteine, and glycine. And if you take supplements of N-acetylcysteine, it tends to boost glutathione synthesis. The problem is that much of our glutathione gets used up by acting as an antioxidant in our cells and as a conjugating agent for various substances in the detoxification process. As an example, people using acetaminophen on a regular basis, the glutathione really gets used up very quickly there. But there's so many other things coming into our bodies today, pesticides, herbicides, and other medications people are taking. Glutathione gets used up for these purposes, and not enough of it, we think, is left to actually act as a heavy metal detoxifying agent or to maximize the heavy metal detoxifying function where glutathione could play a role. So helping to boost our glutathione levels in this day and age where since World War II there's been over 85,000 new chemicals created by the chemical industries. We've never been, the Homo sapiens has never been exposed to so many different chemicals, and it's all happened in a very short window of time in terms of how many total years this has all happened since like 1946 maybe. However, studies suggest that we can optimize our glutathione status by taking a supplement that boosts glutathione synthesis. So the things that show that we can increase glutathione levels Originally, this was only shown in animal models, but now with N-acetylcysteine and alpha-lipoic acid, we're seeing human studies now suggesting that these things can raise definitely glutathione levels in humans. But also we've seen that, experimentally, L-glutamine and milk thistle, as long as the milk thistle is at a standardized grade of silymarin, which is the flavonoid that helps to raise glutathione levels and protect liver cells. So silymarin is this flavonoid content. So when you're looking at milk thistle, you want to try to get a milk thistle that's at least a standardized grade of 80% silymarin content. If you just took glutathione in its preformed state and you swallowed it, the body can't absorb that intact. It's poorly absorbed. You don't raise your glutathione levels by swallowing glutathione as a rule. But supplementing with glutathione boosting agents appears to be a good way to help optimize glutathione status and thus help improve heavy metal detoxification. In fact, alpha-lipoic acid has its own heavy metal detoxifying properties over and above its role in raising glutathione. So alpha-lipoic acid, which contains sulfur, we've seen this before, is a sulfur-containing compound. The body makes it, but as we get older, we make less alpha-lipoic acid. When there's more free radical damage or oxidative stress going on, we use it up at a faster rate. But alpha-lipoic acid can actually, because it contains sulfur, bind to heavy metals and help to excrete them from the body. And the same with N-acetylcysteine. It's a sulfur-containing substance. Cysteine is a sulfur-containing amino acid. It has its own unique heavy metal detoxifying properties. So I think it's wise, and I do this myself. I take a supplement each day that has N-acetylcysteine, alpha-lipoic acid, L-glutamine, and a standardized grade of milk thistle containing optimal silymarin content. But there are other sulfur-containing amino acids that can be helpful, such as taurine and methionine. So your body normally has ample methionine as long as you're eating enough protein foods and you're ingesting, the B vitamins, folic acid, and B12. So we understand now that the way that you recycle homocysteine to methionine is the methyl group from folic acid is given to vitamin B12 and methionine. You recycle homocysteine to methionine. We've covered this many times now. But to optimize your methionine, which is a sulfur-containing amino acid, which also does detoxification for the body, you want to have enough protein foods each day and also make sure that you're getting B vitamins at the right dosage and that your 5-methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme is not impaired. So if you're seeing high homocysteine levels when you're taking a B50 complex, then you might need to take some of your folic acid in the form of 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. And taurine, by the way, which is made from cysteine, is the most abundant amino acid in the heart muscle, and it plays a key role in helping to prevent congestive heart failure, and it serves multi-purpose functions within the heart muscle, and we will look at that in more detail in the cardiovascular subject matter on this platform. But researchers are still looking into its role in heart health, but it certainly has some detoxification ability regarding heavy metals. We're talking about taurine here. So for individuals, now there's some people that have some serious heavy metal toxicities where doctors can administer intravenous pharmaceutical chelating agents such as DMSA and EDTA and penicillamine, not penicillin, but penicillamine. These are used to remove heavy metals from the body, and in some cases they're used for the removal of excessive copper that would occur in Wilson's disease and other nutritional metals that can be removed if they build up too high, like iron as an example, when you're looking at hemochromatosis. So in Wilson's disease, of course, the body's not making the ceruloplasmin protein that sequesters copper. So too much copper builds up and it's not bound to protein, so it's free to interact with oxygen and generate lots of free radicals, and you damage the liver and all kinds of internal organs, and usually the lifespan of a person with Wilson's disease is cut short because of this oxidative stress that just continues to hammer away at the cell. So removing some of that copper using intravenous chelating agents has been shown to help tone down some of the copper-induced free radical damage. And the same is true for hemochromatosis, which can also you can also lower some of that iron just through some bloodletting as well. But this form of intravenous chelation is reserved for these super high risk people, or people where they have heavy metal toxicities that are creating significant nervous system problems or liver damage and so on. This is not something that some doctor's just going to routinely do for you as sort of a prevention intervention. So from day to day, we really need to have a detoxification strategy that's working in our best interest. So what does that look like? Well, first and foremost, you want to do your best to reduce exposure to heavy metals in the environment and in the food that you're eating. So now with regard to fish and mercury consumption, the FDA and the EPA have made the following recommendations for pregnant and nursing women and young children, but I think these are the recommendations we should all be following. So regarding dietary fish and seafood, avoid eating shark, swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, which is also known as golden bass or golden snapper. These fish have a lot of mercury. Limit the consumption of all other types of fish to 12 ounces per week, so 2 6-ounce servings. That's it. Limit the consumption of canned albacore tuna or fresh tuna to no more than 6 ounces per week. A lot of people have this canned tuna and they have it like every other day for lunch with a salad, and they think they're doing themselves a big favor, because it's not red meat or something. But this is what's leading to a lot of mercury toxicity and nervous system damage in our society today. Limit the fish eaten by young children to even smaller portions. Check local advisories about the safety of fish caught in local lakes, rivers, and coastal areas. If no advice is available, eat no more than 6 ounces per week of locally caught fish. And do not consume any other fish during that week. So in a week like that, when you're eating fish from a local lake or river or stream, and you don't really know what the advisory is, if you have 6 ounces of that fish, that's all the fish you're having that week. If more than the recommended amount of fish is eaten in 1 week, eat less the following weeks to try to compensate for it. Some additional information about mercury can be found in references 6 and 7 at the end of this section. I've also included a list of the safe and less safe fish to consume regarding mercury levels at the end of this section as a quick reference, and we'll look at it together shortly. But these are the other strategies. So with respect to detoxification of heavy metals, the available research suggests that regular consumption of whole grains and fruits and at least 3 to 5 servings a week of a cruciferous vegetable would help to remove some toxic metals from the body on an ongoing basis. So on an ongoing basis, you want to be blocking, you want to reduce the absorption and decrease the reabsorption and start dragging some of these things out of the body as best you can. And adding garlic and onions to foods being prepared also seems to be prudent, as well as the possible use of a fiber supplement, and particularly psyllium husk fiber. That's where the best evidence is for fiber. So psyllium husk fiber, like a lot of other fiber, has sort of a negative charge, and a lot of these toxic metals are positive cations, and so there's like this electrostatic attraction, and so the negative fiber binds to the positive cations and can remove it from the body. As for supplements, individuals may benefit from the use of a high-potency multivitamin and mineral that's enriched with antioxidants, vitamin C, E, and selenium, because they also, in experimental studies, have been shown to raise glutathione levels, probably because vitamin C and vitamin E and selenium working with glutathione peroxidase can actually step in and quench free radicals so you don't use up all your glutathione so quickly, and it can be used then more as a detoxification molecule. With respect to calcium, consider a multivitamin or an additional calcium supplement plus food you eat each day. You're trying to shoot for 1,000 milligrams of calcium per day, unless there's a reason medically why you can't have that much. In some cases, more optimally, 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams might be more ideal. Regarding selenium, a good multivitamin should have 100 to 200 micrograms of selenium, which is plenty. And a multivitamin can also help ensure more ideal intake levels of folic acid and B12 to help optimize methionine synthesis. You're aware of that. And there's some preliminary evidence that a probiotic supplement may also be helpful in heavy metal detoxification processes. So that's also been referred to in that article. Patients may also be advised to take a supplement each day containing glutathione boosters and detoxifiers, alpha-lipoic acid, N-acetylcysteine, L-glutamine, that should be L-glutamine, and milk thistle. Standardized to 80% slimmern content, the milk thistle. Finally, sweating with exercise or by using a sauna may be beneficial as well, as toxic metals are also excreted in sweat. Isn't that interesting? So regular exercise is also a natural detoxifier, along with providing a multitude of other health benefits, cardiovascular and so on, which is another reason to be doing aerobic exercise on a regular basis. And, if you're healthy enough to use saunas as well, it's interesting that some toxic metals are excreted in sweat, which is, interesting. So these are the fish that are high in mercury content. Shark, swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, golden snapper. Lower in mercury but still to be avoided would be tuna steak, which is also used in sushi and sashimi. Sometimes when if I'm having sushi, I'd like the tuna, but I'm aware that is not something I want to do too often. And of course, the canned albacore white tuna. And this is fish to be eaten in limited quantities by pregnant women who may be pregnant, as well as children. So there's a lot of fish to eat in very limited quantities. The canned light tuna, sea bass, Gold Coast oysters, eastern oyster, marlin, halibut, channel catfish, haddock, mahi-mahi, largemouth bass, the blue mussel, cod, pollock, Gold Coast blue crab, pike, Great Lake salmon, lake whitefish, white croaker, and walleye, which I don't know what that is. These are fish that are the lowest in mercury content. Not the most popular ones as a rule. Catfish, farmed, king crab, scallops, fish sticks, although they're probably going to be breaded and fried, so I don't think that really counts. Flounder in the summer, farmed trout, and the wild Pacific salmon. If you're going to have salmon, you want it to be wild Pacific salmon. And shrimp are okay. Tilapia, interesting. Although, some of the tilapia, I think coming out of China, if it's farmed, may not be the best choice. And sardines, also because they're very small fish, they don't accumulate a lot of mercury and toxins. So these are the references for that material. You'll see that first reference is the one by Sears that I was referring to at the beginning, but these are the other references to fill in the gaps of those citations. And I've given you links to everything if you want to learn more about this. And but I think it's something that we needed to cover at some point, just to get a feel for the fact that we should be working towards avoiding toxicity and also working to remove toxins from our body, not just in fancy schmancy elaborate programs with major protocols, but just on a daily basis. By how we're eating, exercising, and certain supplements that can also be helpful just on a chronic basis to try to decrease toxicity of some of these metals, some of which can do great damage to the nervous system. So we'll leave it there. When we come back, we're going to touch on some of the autism research that I think you might find quite interesting.